The rain had been falling for hours, a steady, cold drizzle that turned the cobblestone sidewalks of Cambridge into slick mirrors reflecting the amber glow of the streetlights. It was the kind of night when the city seemed to hold its breath, the kind when secrets preferred to travel unseen. Detective Nathan Hale stepped out of his unmarked sedan and pulled the collar of his coat tighter against the wind. The flashing red and blue lights painted the quiet residential street in unsettling hues. A crime scene this close to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology always drew attention, especially when the victim was a professor with a name in the scientific community. The house was a three-story brownstone, its windows dark except for the harsh flood of police lights bouncing off the rain-slicked brick. Nathan ducked under the yellow tape and flashed his badge to the uniform at the door. "Detective Hale, homicide. What do we have?" The officer, a young man with wet hair plastered to his forehead, looked relieved to see him. "Edward Grant, 41. Mathematics and cryptography professor at MIT. Neighbor called in, saw the door ajar, lights flickering. We found him in the study." Nathan's eyes scanned the entryway. No signs of forced entry. No overturned furniture. A faint metallic smell lingered beneath the damp air, blood, mingling with something else, something acrid. "Where's the medical examiner?" he asked. "Upstairs already. Captain Reed's here too." Nathan climbed the narrow staircase, boots squeaking against the polished wood. His mind had already begun its usual routine, cataloging details, filtering noise from signal. But there was something about the weight of the air tonight, the way the rain seemed to press against the windows, that felt wrong. The study door stood open, and inside the scene waited. Professor Edward Grant lay sprawled on the floor, his shirt ripped open, his chest a canvas of strange, deliberate marks. They were not random stabs or frenzied slashes, they were etched, almost carefully carved. Lines, circles, intersecting symbols that resembled a language but not one Nathan recognized. "Jesus," he muttered. Captain Jonathan Reed, a tall man with a graying buzz cut and a perpetual frown, looked up from where he stood near the window. "Glad you finally made it, Hale. This one's going to be a circus." Nathan crouched near the body, careful not to disturb the evidence markers. The professor's face was pale, eyes open, mouth slightly parted as if he tried to speak one last word. His right hand clutched a torn scrap of paper. "What's that?" Nathan asked the crime scene tech. "Found it under his fingers," the tech said, holding up the evidence bag. "It's a fragment of a printed email, except the text is gibberish. Strings of numbers, letters, some symbols. Doesn't match any code we recognize." Nathan frowned. "Gibberish to you, maybe." Reed grunted. "Media's already calling it a ritual killing. Don't give them any more to chew on." Nathan ignored him and examined the wall opposite the body. There, smeared in what looked like blood mixed with ink, was a single sentence of jagged, unfamiliar characters. They weren't Latin letters. Not exactly Cyrillic. Something older? Or perhaps something constructed. Was this written by the killer? Nathan asked. "Too soon to tell," Reed replied. Door wasn't forced. No signs of struggle anywhere else in the house. Whoever did this, if anyone did, was either invited in, or Grant knew them. Nathan stood slowly. The marks on the chest weren't just cuts. They were a message. "Check his laptop, his phone, anything digital," Nathan said to the officers. "And seal this place. No leaks." Reed crossed his arms. "Good luck with that. MIT's already sniffing around. And we've got the mayor's office breathing down our necks." Grant wasn't just a professor. He consulted for the government on encryption algorithms. That makes this political. Nathan sighed. Another layer of complication. "Any next of kin?" he asked. "Wife, Julia Grant. Out of town, in New York for a conference. We're flying her in." Nathan glanced at the body one more time. Something about the positioning of the symbols tugged at a memory, like a puzzle half remembered. 2 hours later, back at the precinct, Nathan poured himself a bitter cup of coffee and stared at the printouts of the crime scene photos. The symbols gnawed at him. They weren't random. They had symmetry, repetitions. Like coordinates. Or a cipher. He scribbled notes in his pad, Ouroboros-like shape. 3 intersecting lines. Repeated triangle. Series, 731. His phone buzzed. Captain Reed. Hale, we're bringing in an outside consultant. Someone who actually understands this cryptography crap. She'll be here in the morning. Nathan rubbed his temple. Who? Claire Mitchell. Used to work for the agency. She's young, but she's cracked codes the NSA couldn't touch. Great, Nathan muttered. Another civilian in the mix. Play nice, Reed said before hanging up. Nathan leaned back in his chair. He'd seen his share of brutal murders, but this one felt less like a killing and more like a message left in flesh. And for whom? As the rain drummed against the windows, he looked again at the last photograph, Grant's lifeless eyes, staring toward the wall as if urging someone to read what he could no longer say. Nathan Hale wasn't a man prone to superstition. But for the first time in years, a cold unease crawled along his spine. Somewhere in that room, a dead man had left a secret. And someone out there wanted to make sure it was found. The morning after the murder broke gray and bitterly cold, the kind of February day when Boston seemed carved from stone. The rain had turned to a light, icy drizzle, and the city woke under a pall of muted urgency. News of Professor Edward Grant's death had already splashed across headlines. MIT cryptography expert found dead in apparent ritual killing. Speculation buzzed like hornets: conspiracy, espionage, occult. Detective Nathan Hale arrived at the precinct with a newspaper folded under his arm, though he hadn't read a word of it. His mind was still with the symbols. He hadn't slept much, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, those jagged lines burned behind his eyelids like a neon sign he couldn't decipher. Captain Reed was waiting in the bullpen, phone pressed to his ear, scowling at the morning chaos. When he spotted Nathan, he waved him over and jerked his head toward the conference room. "She's here," Reed said after hanging up. "She?" Nathan asked. "Our consultant." Nathan pushed the door open and found a woman standing by the window, coat still damp from the rain. She was in her early 30s, sharp-featured but not severe, with dark auburn hair pulled into a low knot and a gaze that could slice through fog. She turned as he entered, and her expression was neither warm nor cold, just assessing. "Detective Hale," she said before he could introduce himself. "Claire Mitchell." "You've got quite the resume, Ms. Mitchell," Nathan replied, shaking her hand. "CIA, NSA, half the alphabet. What brings you down to our humble homicide unit?" "I was asked," she said simply. "And call me Claire." Her voice was calm, deliberate, someone used to commanding rooms without raising her tone. Reed stepped in behind him. "She's been briefed on the essentials. Let her do her thing." Nathan set his coffee down and laid the crime scene photos on the table. "Thing is, this isn't just some random set of scratches. The press wants to paint it as a ritual, but it's more deliberate than that." Claire moved closer, her eyes scanning the photographs. "You're right," she murmured. "This isn't a language I recognize immediately, but it has structure. Symmetry. See here, the repeated triangular motif? That's not decorative. That's indexing." "Indexing what?" Nathan asked. "That's what we're here to find out." She picked up another photo, the one with the blood-smeared sentence on the wall, and her brows drew together. "He had time," she said softly. "This wasn't carved post-mortem. He did this, or allowed this, before death." Nathan folded his arms. "You think the victim left this message himself?" "I think he knew he was going to die," she replied, and this was the only way to communicate something vital. Reed exhaled sharply. "So we're chasing the ghost of a dead man's riddle now." Claire ignored him and pulled a notebook from her bag. It was well worn, with a leather cover and pages marked in tiny, neat handwriting. Tell me about Edward Grant. Who would want him dead? Take your pick, Nathan said. He worked on encryption systems, government contracts, private consultations for companies he probably couldn't name without a clearance badge. Enemies? Plenty. But no signs of a break-in, no theft, no classic motive. Unless the motive was the message, Claire said. Nathan studied her for a moment. There was a fire beneath her composure, something personal in the way she leaned over the evidence. He'd seen that look before, on people who had skin in the game. You've seen something like this? He asked. She hesitated. Not exactly. But my father, he was a cryptographer too. He died under unresolved circumstances. Reed cleared his throat. Let's not get autobiographical. Nathan let it go, for now. What's your take on this scrap of paper we found in his hand? He slid the evidence photo across to her, a string of numbers and letters, nonsensical to him. Claire's eyes narrowed. Base 64 at first glance. But with substitutions. You got that in 5 seconds? It's my job. She looked up at him. Where's his personal computer? External drives? Nathan gestured to a cardboard evidence box in the corner. Everything from his study. Laptops, phone, a stack of USB drives. Forensics hasn't cracked them yet, most are encrypted. Claire picked up one of the USB sticks with gloved hands. It was black, unmarked, but heavier than usual. This one, she said. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You just picked the one. Call it instinct, she said. Or pattern recognition. They moved to the digital forensics lab, a cramped room filled with the hum of servers and the glow of monitors. A technician looked up as they entered. You're going to want this one unlocked, Nathan said, tossing him the USB. The tech frowned. Grant's encryption was state-of-the-art. Could take days. Or, Claire said, taking a seat beside him, you can let me try. The tech shrugged and handed over the keyboard. Claire plugged the drive in, fingers moving with the ease of someone who thought in algorithms. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Encrypted with a variant of AES-256, she murmured. But the key isn't random, it's derived from a passphrase. And how do you know that? Nathan asked. She smirked faintly. Because Grant always used layered passphrase in his publications. See this header? It's a tell. Within minutes, the screen blinked and opened a single file, cipher.txt. Nathan leaned in. The document contained another message, this time in plain English, though fragmented. If you're reading this, I am already gone. The names below are not random. Start with the first. He will know. Beneath it, a list of 3 names. The first, Nathan Hale. Nathan froze. What the hell? Reed's voice was like gravel behind him. That better be a joke. I didn't know the man personally, Nathan said, eyes fixed on the screen. Claire studied his reaction. He knew you, though. Nathan forced himself to focus. The other names, Harold Finch, Marcus Lowell. Lowell is his assistant. And Harold Finch? Reed asked. Never heard of him. Claire sat back, tapping her pen against her notebook. This isn't just a cipher. It's a breadcrumb trail. Reed rubbed his temples. Great. So the dead guy's calling you out from beyond the grave. Media's going to love this. Nathan turned to Claire. Can you trace where this was written from? Timestamp, metadata? Already on it, she said, fingers flying again. But I'll tell you this, Grant wanted this to be found by you. The question is, why? Later that evening, Nathan stepped out into the drizzle once more, the USB drive secure in an evidence bag under his arm. The city's lights shimmered in the wet streets, and the air tasted of salt and exhaust. He couldn't shake the unease. Of all the detectives in Boston, why had a dying cryptographer etched his name into a riddle? His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Detective Hale, you're in deeper than you think. The message isn't for the police. It's for you. Nathan stopped dead in his tracks, the chill crawling up his spine. No signature. Just a location pin, an old library building on the MIT campus. And a time, midnight. The library loomed like a relic from another age, its Gothic facade casting long, skeletal shadows under the midnight rain. Once a proud MIT archive, it had been shuttered years ago, budget cuts, asbestos, or maybe just neglect. Now, only the occasional campus ghost story kept students away. Detective Nathan Hale parked a block away and killed the engine. The campus was quiet at this hour, the kind of silence that magnified every footstep. He glanced at his phone again, the message was still there, the location pin pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. He hadn't told Reed. Not yet. The last thing he needed was the captain pulling him off the case because some anonymous ghost was whispering his name. And Claire? He'd left her a cryptic voicemail, got a lead. Don't follow unless I call. He wasn't sure why he wanted to do this alone. The heavy wooden doors creaked open just enough to let a sliver of cold air slip out. Inside, the library smelled of damp paper and rusted metal. Dust motes danced in the glow of his flashlight as he swept the beam across rows of empty shelves and toppled ladders. Detective Hale, a voice murmured from the darkness. Nathan froze, hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at his side. A figure stepped into the weak circle of light, a man in his late 50s, trench coat slick with rain, a fedora shadowing his eyes. His face was sharp, hawkish, and familiar in a way Nathan couldn't place. You came alone, the man said. Good. Who the hell are you? Nathan demanded. Harold Finch. The name hit like a cold splash of water. One of the names on Grant's encrypted note. You sent the message? Finch nodded once. Grant was a friend. A difficult one, but a friend. And now he's dead because he dug too deep. Nathan narrowed his eyes. Into what? The Cipher Project, Finch said quietly. A program he was part of, long before the public ever heard his name. They were working on something, beyond encryption. Beyond mathematics. Plain English. A key that could unlock any code, Finch said. A universal cryptographic skeleton key. And someone was willing to kill for it. Nathan studied the man carefully. He seemed genuine, but that was the trick of good liars. Why me? Why is my name on that list? Finch exhaled, the sound rough. Because your father died for the same reason. Nathan felt his chest tighten. You don't know a damn thing about my father. I know more than you think, Finch said. Robert Hale wasn't just a police officer. He was involved with Grant back in '99. When the prototype of the cipher was stolen, your father was one of the few who tried to blow the whistle. The library seemed to tilt for a moment, the walls closing in. Give me proof, Nathan said. Finch reached into his coat slowly and produced a small, metallic capsule, a USB drive, but heavier, engraved with the same triangular motif from Grant's chest. This is what he died for, Finch said. Grant left 3 pieces of the puzzle. You have one. I carry another. The third? I don't know yet. Nathan didn't take it. You could be setting me up. You're already in it, Detective, Finch said, his voice dropping. Look around you. They're watching. A flicker of movement at the far end of the library, just a shadow, but enough to trigger instinct. Nathan spun, gun drawn. The shot came a split second later, not his. Glass shattered above them, and a bullet buried itself in a stack of rotting books. Move! Finch barked. They ran, boots pounding against the warped floorboards, echoes chasing them through the hollow corridors. Another shot cracked the air. Whoever was firing was silenced, professional, and close. They burst through a side door into the alley, rain lashing against their faces. Finch shoved the metallic capsule into Nathan's coat pocket. Decrypt it, Finch said, backing away into the shadows. Find Claire Mitchell. she's the only one who can read it. And detective, trust no one. Then he was gone, swallowed by the night. Back at his apartment, Nathan locked the door and leaned against it, heart still hammering. The city was waking now, trucks rumbling on distant streets, the faint orange of dawn bleeding into the horizon, but he felt farther from sleep than ever. He set the capsule on his desk. Its design was unmistakable, same engraving, same cold weight. Grant had died with one message. Now there was a second piece, delivered under gunfire. His phone buzzed. "Claire. You left without me," she said, her voice a mixture of irritation and concern. "And now there's a report of shots fired near the old MIT library. Want to tell me what's going on?" Nathan hesitated. "Trust no one," Finch had said. But Claire wasn't no one. She was already neck-deep in this, and she had the skills he didn't. "Meet me at my place," Nathan said finally. "We've got a problem. And a clue." 2 hours later, Claire stood over the capsule, examining the engravings. "This isn't standard tech," she said. "This is custom fabrication. No manufacturer's markings, no serial." "You're sure it came from Finch?" "As sure as I am about anything tonight," Nathan muttered. She looked at him. "And you trust him?" "No. But I trust bullets. Someone wanted him dead." Claire sat, pulling her laptop closer. "Let's see if this thing even talks to modern systems." She plugged it in, and a single folder appeared, keyfrag_2. Inside, another ciphered message, longer this time, and accompanied by a fragment of an image. Half a blueprint? Or a map? Nathan frowned. Half a map to what? Claire's fingers flew. If the algorithm is similar to the one from Grant's drive, this could take hours, or days. Nathan poured himself a black coffee and stared out the window. Rain streaked the glass, neon lights from the street below bending in the rivulets. Someone had shot at him tonight. Someone who didn't want this decrypted. And somewhere out there, the third piece was waiting. For the first time in his career, Nathan felt less like a hunter, and more like prey. By the time Nathan arrived at the precinct the next morning, the rain had turned to a miserable sleet. The city wore a film of gray exhaustion, and so did he. 2 nights with barely a whisper of sleep had etched lines beneath his eyes, and the weight of that metallic capsule in his coat pocket felt like a brick dragging him down. Captain Reed was already pacing the bullpen, jaw tight, voice low but sharp as a knife. A few heads turned when Nathan walked in. Word of the library incident had leaked, and rumors had a way of mutating faster than any virus. Reed spotted him instantly. "My office." "Now." Nathan followed, closing the door behind him. Reed dropped a newspaper on the desk. "Detective linked to cryptography murder," the headline screamed. "Care to explain why your name is on the dead man's secret message?" Reed said, his tone somewhere between anger and exasperation. "I'm as surprised as you are," Nathan replied evenly. "Grant and I never met." "Then how do you explain this?" Reed jabbed a finger at the article. "Anonymous sources claiming you were seen near the MIT library when shots were fired?" Nathan didn't flinch. "Anonymous sources have good aim these days." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Hale, you've got a hell of a record, but this isn't one of your usual alleyway shootings. There's pressure on this case, feds sniffing around, MIT lawyers making calls. I need you to get me a suspect, not headlines." "I might have one," Nathan said. "Marcus Lowell. Grant's assistant." Reed sat back, skeptical. "The kid? He's a grad student. Grad students steal tech, sell it to private contractors, disappear overseas. You know that world better than anyone." Reed tapped his desk. "Fine. Bring him in. But this time, I want Claire Mitchell in the room. Whatever this is, it's bigger than homicide." Marcus Lowell looked like the kind of man who never expected to be in a police station. Tall, lanky, with prematurely thinning blonde hair and a nervous tick in his jaw, he fidgeted with his sleeve cuffs as they led him into the interview room. Claire was already there, laptop open, fingers tapping idly as she scanned through digital folders. She barely glanced up when Marcus sat. "Marcus Lowell," Nathan began, voice calm, almost casual. "You were Professor Grant's assistant for 3 years." "Yes," Marcus said. "And I already told the other officers, I have no idea who would do this." "You said that in your initial statement," Nathan agreed. "But you also said you hadn't been to his office in over a week." "That's not true, is it?" Marcus stiffened. "I dropped by on Monday to deliver some papers." "Monday night," Nathan pressed. "Just hours before he died." Marcus swallowed. "Yes, but I left. He was fine when I left." Claire leaned forward. "What were the papers?" "Draft schematics," Marcus said. "Nothing classified." "Define classified," she said coolly. He looked between them, his discomfort deepening. Professor Grant was paranoid. Everything was classified to him. Grocery lists, email drafts, he encrypted them all. Nathan slid a photograph across the table, the symbols carved into Grant's chest. Marcus flinched. "Do these mean anything to you?" Nathan asked. Marcus shook his head. "No. God, no." "Funny," Nathan said, "because your research papers from last semester, some of these shapes appear in your notations." Marcus's eyes widened. "Those are standard cryptographic markers, geometric placeholders. Anyone in our field uses them." Claire tapped her keyboard. "Marcus, where were you Tuesday night, between 9 and midnight?" "With my girlfriend. Emily Harper." "She can confirm." Nathan exchanged a glance with Claire. It wasn't an airtight alibi, but it was something. "Marcus," Nathan said, voice dropping, "if there's something in Grant's research, something he was working on in secret, we need to know. Because right now, you're at the top of a very short list." Marcus leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "He didn't tell me everything. But he was scared. Kept saying, 'They're coming.' I thought it was just his paranoia getting worse." "Who's they?" Claire asked. Marcus shook his head. "He never said. But 2 weeks ago, he made me shred an entire batch of files. He said if anyone asked, I never saw them." Nathan's instincts prickled. "Did you?" "I backed them up," Marcus admitted, almost whispering. "Not all of them. Just in case." Claire's eyes flashed. "Where?" "My office. Hidden partition. I didn't want to get dragged into this." Nathan stood. Too late. The files were a mess, fragmented, heavily encrypted, half of them corrupted. But among the digital rubble, Claire found something that made her pause, an internal memo stamped with a red header, "Cipher Project, classified, eyes only." Nathan leaned over her shoulder. "That's our second breadcrumb." "It's more than that," Claire murmured. "This memo mentions a fail-safe protocol, something Grant designed to activate in the event of his death." "What kind of fail-safe?" "A release," she said. "Of what, I don't know. But it was tied to 3 key fragments." Nathan's mind flashed to the USB from the crime scene. The capsule from Finch. And now, what? Marcus stood awkwardly by the doorway, wringing his hands. "Look, I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to finish my thesis." Nathan turned to him. "You've done more than enough, Marcus. Go home. But don't leave the city." Marcus nodded, pale. As the door closed, Claire looked at Nathan. "We're running out of time. Whoever killed Grant, they're already 2 steps ahead. And now they know you've got the pieces." Nathan rubbed his temple. "And you still think this is just about cryptography?" Claire's gaze was steady. "No. This is about control." That night, as the city swallowed itself in sleet, Nathan sat alone in his apartment again, the 2 encrypted drives lying side by side on the desk like silent witnesses. His father's face flickered in his memory, faded photographs, a smile he hadn't thought about in years. What had Robert Hale been involved in back then? And why did it feel like ghosts from 2 decades ago were walking the streets again? His phone buzzed, a new message. Detective Hale. You have 1 key. 2 remain. If you want answers, come to the pier. Midnight. This time, there was a name attached. Marcus Lowell. The harbor was nearly deserted at midnight, save for the skeletal outlines of shipping containers and the cold glint of wet asphalt. Fog rolled in thick, wrapping the docks in a ghostly hush. The only sound was the low groan of a moored freighter shifting against its ropes. Nathan parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest, coat collar turned up against the biting wind. The message from Marcus had been brief, desperate. I found something. Midnight. Pier 17. Come alone. Claire had wanted to come, but Nathan had refused. 1 near miss at the library was enough. As he neared Pier 17, a lone figure stepped from the shadows, Marcus Lowell, shivering in his thin jacket, eyes darting nervously at every sound. You came, Marcus said, voice strained. You made it sound urgent, Nathan replied. What do you have? Marcus clutched a messenger bag close to his chest. The rest of the files. I decrypted part of them. Grant was building something he called the primary lattice. It's a framework. If it's completed, it could bypass any cryptographic lock on Earth. Who else knows about this? Nathan asked. I don't know. But I think they're watching me. I saw a car outside my apartment, same one 3 nights in a row. Give me the drive, Nathan said, extending his hand. Marcus hesitated, then started to unzip the bag. That's when the floodlights snapped on. A roar of engines echoed across the pier as 2 black SUVs slid into view, tires hissing on the wet pavement. Doors flew open and masked figures spilled out, weapons raised. Run! Nathan barked. The first shot tore through the night, slamming into the container beside them and showering sparks. Marcus bolted, the bag clutched to his chest, legs pumping wildly. Nathan fired twice, low and controlled, forcing the attackers to scatter. Then he sprinted after Marcus, the pounding of boots behind them growing louder. They weaved through the maze of containers, fog wrapping around them like a curtain. Marcus stumbled, caught himself, kept going. Another shot cracked the air, this one close enough that Nathan felt the heat of it as it passed. There, one of the masked men shouted. The pier opened into a dead end, just black water ahead, a single rusted ladder leading down to the icy harbor. We're trapped, Marcus gasped. Not yet, Nathan muttered. He grabbed Marcus by the collar and shoved him behind a stack of crates. Then he yanked the bag free and pulled the drive out. Take it, Marcus whispered, panicked. Just take it and go. Not leaving you behind, Nathan said. The attackers rounded the corner, 4 of them now, moving like a trained unit. Nathan fired again, dropping one to a knee. The others fanned out. Throw the bag, a voice barked through a modulator. Come take it, Nathan growled. Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. Detective, we have to. A shot rang out, and Marcus jerked violently, collapsing against the crates. The messenger bag tumbled from his hands, sliding across the slick concrete. No! Nathan Dove grabbed Marcus by the shoulders. Blood was already spreading across his shirt. Go, Marcus rasped. Find the 3rd key. His eyes fluttered, then went still. Nathan felt a surge of fury. He grabbed the drive, stuffed it into his coat, and turned as the masked figures advanced. A crane overhead groaned in the wind. Nathan spotted the control panel, a dangling hook swinging low. He fired at the panel, sparks cascading as the hook snapped free and slammed into the pier, scattering the attackers for a crucial moment. He ran. Down the ladder, into the freezing spray, boots slipping on the metal rungs. Behind him, shouts and gunfire tore the fog apart. He hit the water hard, the cold biting like 1,000 needles, then kicked toward the dark line of the next pier over. By the time he dragged himself onto the rocks, the SUVs were gone. Claire found him an hour later, soaked, bruised, and silent. "He's dead?" she asked. Nathan nodded. "And they've made their move. This isn't just cleanup anymore. They're hunting the keys." She unzipped the wet messenger bag. The drive was intact. "Two down," Claire murmured. "One to go." Nathan stared out at the harbor, the fog swallowing the city lights. Marcus had died for a secret he barely understood. And now, with every piece they found, the enemy grew bolder. This wasn't just about Professor Grant anymore. It was about whatever Cipher Project had buried, and the people willing to kill to keep it that way. The next morning brought a pale, brittle dawn, the kind that made the city look half frozen and half asleep. Nathan sat at his kitchen table, nursing coffee gone cold, the flash drive from Marcus lying between his fingers like a ticking bomb. Claire arrived with a thin folder under her arm and a look that said she hadn't slept either. "Tell me you found something," Nathan said. She placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were two photographs, grainy, black and white, clearly from a much earlier time. One showed Professor Grant in his 20s, standing beside a row of men in military fatigues. The other made Nathan stop breathing. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From the decrypted archive," Claire said. "Dated 2001. That's your father, isn't it?" It was. Robert Hale, dressed in civilian tactical gear, arm around a young colleague, Grant, again, only younger, unburdened by paranoia. Behind them, a sign, Project Cipher, Restricted Facility. Nathan traced the edges of the photograph with his thumb. He hadn't seen his father in 22 years, not since the day Robert vanished without a trace. Official reports had said, classified deployment overseas. Family whispers had said, betrayal. What the hell was he doing there? Nathan murmured. Claire tapped the second page in the folder. According to the files, Cipher wasn't just a research project. It was a joint venture, military and private sector. They were developing a cryptographic algorithm designed for black ops communication. Only it didn't stay theoretical. It was tested. And your father's name appears 5 times as a liaison officer. Nathan leaned back, feeling the old, familiar weight press against his chest. So Grant knew him. More than that, Claire said. Grant may have been working with him to finish what they started. Nathan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hale. The voice on the other end was distorted, mechanical. You're digging where you shouldn't. Who is this? You have 2 keys. They belong to us. Then come take them. Silence. Then, you won't survive this, detective. Your father didn't. The line went dead. Nathan stared at the phone, then at the photograph. His father's smile seemed suddenly cruel, a shadow of a man who might have known exactly how this would end. Later that day, Nathan and Claire met in a dimly lit archive room at MIT, where they had arranged to examine the original blueprints recovered from Marcus's drive. The university had finally relented. Pressure from law enforcement, combined with the promise of federal oversight, had cracked the door open. Claire projected the decrypted schematics onto the wall. A lattice of symbols, equations, and unfamiliar glyphs glowed faintly in the darkness. This isn't just code, she said. It's architecture. A framework that rewrites the rules of encryption. Imagine a lock that not only holds a door shut, but also changes the shape of the room behind it. Nathan frowned. And the keys? They're not just access points. They're fragments of the architecture. Without all 3, the lattice collapses. Which means the killers need all 3 to finish what Grant started. Or to erase it, Claire said softly. A shadow moved outside the glass window. Nathan's instincts snapped into place. He drew his weapon, motioning for Claire to stay behind the projector. He pushed open the door and found nothing. Just a corridor, silent and empty. But on the floor lay an envelope, plain and unmarked. Inside, a single sheet of paper, old and yellowing. On it, a code. Handwritten. Familiar. It was his father's handwriting. Back at the precinct, Nathan spread the note across his desk. The symbols were the same style carved into Grant's skin, but arranged differently, like coordinates or a map. Reed approached, hands in his pockets. "Hale, the brass is breathing down my neck. Tell me you've got a suspect." "I've got a ghost," Nathan muttered. Reed raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning the only person who can explain this might have died 22 years ago." Reed looked at the note. "You think your old man left you this?" "I think," Nathan said slowly, "someone wants me to believe he's still alive." That night, Nathan sat in his darkened apartment, the city lights bleeding through the blinds. He spread out everything, photographs, drives, the coded letter, and for the first time, the pieces didn't look like random fragments. They looked like a trail. A trail left by a man who had disappeared into the shadows of the same project that was now killing his colleagues. Nathan picked up the phone. "Claire. Pack your things. We're going to Virginia." "Why?" "That's where it started," Nathan said, looking at the photograph again. "And maybe where it ended." The road to rural Virginia stretched under a gray sky, the landscape growing sparser with every passing mile. Old tobacco barns slumped by the roadside like forgotten tombstones, their wood bleached by decades of wind and rain. Nathan drove, knuckles white on the wheel. Claire sat in the passenger seat, laptop balanced on her knees, scanning the decrypted maps from Marcus's drive. "According to these coordinates," she said, "there should be a decommissioned research facility here. Officially closed in 2004. "Officially," Nathan echoed. "And unofficially?" She glanced at him. "Unlisted, black budget, military contracts." Cipher was just one of many. They turned onto a narrow road, overgrown with weeds, until the remains of a chain-link fence appeared. Rusted signs still clung to it, "Restricted Area, U.S. Property." Nathan killed the engine. The place smelled of damp earth and pine needles. The main building loomed ahead, concrete, cracked, windows dark. A faded emblem above the doorway bore only a fragment of a name, "Our Cipher Facility." Inside, their flashlights pierced long hallways lined with peeling paint. The air was stale, filled with the faint scent of mold and something older, like burned circuitry. Claire brushed her fingers along a wall of lockers. "Feels like they left in a hurry." Nathan crouched near a scattering of old files, their edges curling. The top page bore a familiar signature, R. Hale. His father's handwriting again. "Look at this," Nathan said. Final shipment log. January 12, 2003. Destination, unknown. Claire snapped photos. "Could be where the third key is." A clatter echoed down the hall. Both froze. Nathan drew his gun. "Stay here." He moved silently, boots crunching glass, until he reached a side corridor. A faint beam of light flickered ahead, like a dying flashlight. "Police," he called. "Show yourself." A figure emerged, staggering, blood on his hands. It was Agent Cole Whitaker, a federal contractor Nathan had met once, years ago, during a joint op. "Whitaker?" Nathan said. "What the hell are you doing here?" Whitaker's lips moved, but the words were faint, they knew. "I was coming, the third key." Then he collapsed, a dark stain spreading across his back. Nathan knelt beside him, fingers finding only fading warmth. His eyes darted to the floor near Whitaker's hand, scratched into the dust, a single symbol. The same cipher glyphs again, but with a new twist, an added diagonal slash. Claire appeared behind him, eyes wide. "He's dead?" "Shot in the back," Nathan said grimly. "And not long ago." They swept the rest of the building, tension mounting with each echo of their steps. In a basement lab, they found what looked like a server room, gutted, but one rack still humming faintly on emergency power. Claire connected her laptop. The screen came alive with strings of corrupted data, fragmented but legible enough to read a name. Operative designation, Halcyon. Nathan stared at the word. That's what the voice said, when they called me. Halcyon. Claire frowned. What does it mean? Not sure. But I'm starting to think my father wasn't just a liaison. Outside, the wind had picked up, whistling through the cracked fence. As they headed back to the car, Nathan noticed fresh tire tracks cutting through the mud. Too fresh. He scanned the tree line. Nothing. Let's move, he said. They climbed into the car, but as the engine roared to life, Claire caught something in the rearview mirror, a red dot dancing on the trunk. Drive, she yelled. The first shot shattered the back window. Nathan swerved, gravel spraying, as figures emerged from the woods, rifles glinting. Not again, he muttered, slamming the accelerator. The car fishtailed onto the main road, bullets chewing up the asphalt behind them. Claire ducked low, clutching the laptop. Who the hell sends a hit team to an abandoned facility? She shouted. The same people who cleaned up the pier, Nathan said through gritted teeth. They didn't stop until they reached a truck stop 40 miles away, adrenaline still humming in their veins. Claire set the laptop on the dashboard. So now we have a dead federal agent, proof your father was involved, and a new codename, Halcyon. Nathan lit a cigarette he hadn't smoked in years. The flame flickered as his hands trembled. They're trying to erase the past, he said. But the past isn't gone. The motel room smelled of stale coffee and rain-soaked carpet. Claire sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, her face lit by the cold glow of cascading code. Nathan leaned against the wall, his shirt torn from the chase, his gun resting on the nightstand. Whoever hit the facility, Claire said without looking up, wasn't there to search. They were there to destroy. Nathan exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. Then why leave Whitaker alive long enough for me to find him? She glanced up. Maybe to deliver a message. On the laptop screen, the fragments from the server hummed together, corrupted logs, communication headers, partial metadata. Among them, a single phrase kept repeating, Key Node 3, Orpheus. Nathan stepped closer. Orpheus? Like the myth? Exactly, Claire said. A musician who descended into the underworld to retrieve what was lost. Lost, like the keys. Claire tapped the keyboard, cross-referencing the term with known operations and corporate tags. A hit appeared. A defense contractor, Orpheus Dynamics, headquartered in Arlington, Virginia. Officially a cybernetics research firm. Unofficially, a frequent black-budget partner of the Pentagon. Nathan rubbed his jaw. Third key is with them. Claire hesitated. Or we're being led to think that. They arrived in Arlington the next evening under cover of a drizzle that smeared the streetlights into glowing streaks. Orpheus Dynamics towered over the district, a sterile glass cube with mirrored walls and an army of cameras watching from the corners. Nathan scoped the building through binoculars. Security's tighter than a federal courthouse. Which means the key is either here, Claire said, or this is bait. A black sedan pulled up to the entrance. A woman stepped out, late 40s, sharp suit, silver hair in a tight bun. Dr. Evelyn Cross, Chief Technology Officer of Orpheus. Nathan recognized her name from a list Reed had sent, one of the original Cipher Project researchers. She's still in the game, Nathan muttered. That night, they broke into a secondary parking structure, using a maintenance badge Marcus had smuggled from the archives before his disappearance. Inside, the hum of servers vibrated through the walls. Claire hacked the access panel while Nathan kept watch. 3 minutes, she whispered. The door clicked. They slipped inside, a chilled data vault with rows of servers blinking like a forest of mechanical fireflies. On the central console, a file awaited them, as though someone had left it there deliberately. Halcyon_master.key. Nathan stared. That's not bait. That's a damn invitation. Claire downloaded the file onto a secure drive. We can analyze it off-site. Right now, we need. The lights went out. A door slammed somewhere behind them. Then a voice, cold and calm, Detective Hale. Always one step behind. Flashlights cut the dark, a security team, armed, moving information. Nathan grabbed Claire's hand and sprinted toward the maintenance stairwell. Alarms wailed. They burst onto the rooftop just as rain began to pour, slicking the tiles. Across the street, a drone hovered, red lights blinking. "They're hurting us," Nathan said. Claire pulled the drive from her pocket. "Take it." "Not without you." A rope ladder dropped from a hovering black helicopter, unmarked, silent but for the rain-slicing blades. A figure leaned out, face masked, but voice unmistakable through a modulator, the same voice that had called Nathan days before. "Give us the key, detective," the voice boomed. "Or Claire dies." Nathan aimed his gun, heart hammering. "You kill her, and you'll never get it." The masked figure didn't shoot. Instead, he tossed a small device onto the rooftop, a beacon, blinking crimson, and the helicopter rose, vanishing into the storm. Nathan grabbed Claire's wrist. "Move." 30 seconds later, the beacon detonated, shredding the rooftop with a controlled concussive blast. They barely cleared the fire escape in time. Back at their temporary hideout, Claire decrypted a portion of the file they'd stolen. Lines of code scrolled past, interspersed with familiar glyphs, the same carved into Grant's skin. "It's a construct," she said. "A fragment of the original cipher. But look here, embedded metadata." Nathan leaned over her shoulder. The name burned at him, Robert Hale. His father. Claire's voice was low. He wasn't just part of the project. He authored this fragment. Nathan's hands tightened into fists. Then he knew this would happen. She looked at him. Maybe he tried to stop it. The rain outside battered the windows like a drum of warning. Nathan paced the cramped motel room, each step echoing against the peeling wallpaper. Claire sat at the laptop, headphones in, scanning the decrypted segments from the Halcyon_master.key. Despite the storm outside, an even darker storm brewed in their minds. "Something's off," Nathan said, voice low. Whitaker didn't just die because he knew the third key. He was silenced because he trusted the wrong person. Claire paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "I've been cross-referencing every person tied to Cipher Project, Orpheus Dynamics, even Grant's old associates. Someone's manipulating the files remotely. It's sophisticated, almost surgical." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Meaning someone close to us has access." "Close to you?" Claire asked, raising an eyebrow. "Marcus. Or someone like him," Nathan said. "Someone who knew how to insert fragments without leaving a trace. Someone with the access we didn't anticipate." A knock at the door shattered the silence. Nathan whipped around, gun drawn. Claire followed, eyes wide. "Detective Hale?" "It's Captain Reed," a voice called through the wood. Nathan opened the door cautiously. Reed stepped in, carrying a thick manila envelope. His usual stoicism had shifted into a thin veneer of worry. "You need to see this," Reed said, tossing the envelope onto the table. Inside were photographs, grainy images of another body. The victim, Dr. Simon Grayson, an MIT cryptography professor and former colleague of Grant's. His hands were tied, face contorted in terror. Carved into his chest were symbols identical to those Grant had, cryptographic glyphs arranged in a sequence. Nathan's stomach turned. Another pattern. Reed nodded grimly. 3 bodies now. All related to Cipher Project. And the media is already spinning this as a serial cryptographer killer. The public doesn't know, they think it's random. Claire traced the symbols on a piece of paper. They're arranged like coordinates. Not random at all. Someone's sending a message. Nathan leaned against the desk, rubbing his forehead. Message to whom? Maybe to us, Claire said softly. Or maybe to Grant's network. Whoever's doing this is orchestrating it. Carefully. Suddenly, the laptop pinged. Claire frowned. A remote connection attempt. It's coming from inside our network, she said. Someone is monitoring us. Nathan's eyes narrowed. Meaning the mole is not just in Cipher or Orpheus, they're here, somewhere nearby. Maybe even in Reed's precinct. They began retracing their steps, mapping out everyone who had handled the Halcyon_master.key fragments. One name appeared repeatedly, hidden in metadata, EC. EC, Claire murmured. Dr. Evelyn Cross? Nathan's gaze hardened. It fits. Orpheus Dynamics isn't just a corporate shell, they're running the operation from the inside. They've been guiding the killer all along. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Someone was pulling strings, eliminating anyone who could reconstruct the cipher, all while steering Nathan and Claire toward a trap. Hours later, Nathan returned to his apartment, determined to analyze the connections. Files were spread across the table, photographs, digital logs, maps, scribbled notes. Each name, each cipher, each key, formed a web he could barely comprehend. And then a soft beep, a message on his phone. You're in over your head. Stop chasing the shadows. Or the next one is you. EC. Nathan stared at the screen. His father's cryptic influence was everywhere, but Evelyn Cross had clearly been orchestrating events from the shadows. She knew his every move. Claire, he said when she arrived an hour later, this isn't just a hunt for keys anymore. We're being guided, like pawns on a board. And if we misstep, we die, Claire finished for him. Nathan nodded. Exactly. The city lights of Arlington shimmered under a late-night drizzle. Nathan parked several blocks from Orpheus Dynamics, the rain dripping off his coat. Claire adjusted the straps of her backpack, securing the laptop and the decrypted fragments. We don't have much time, Nathan said. Once they realize the Halcyon_master.key is missing, Orpheus will lock everything down. Claire nodded, pulling up the building schematics on her tablet. Service tunnels, maintenance elevators, a security loop. We can use it to bypass cameras, for a while. They slipped into a side entrance, using the badge Marcus had smuggled, and descended into the maintenance corridors. The hum of the building surrounded them like a living organism, wires and pipes forming veins along the walls. Keep your eyes open, Nathan whispered. Cross the wrong line, and we're done. They reached the server hub, an enormous room filled with racks of blinking hardware. Claire immediately started plugging in her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Give me 2 minutes, she whispered. I'll trace the third key's access node. Nathan kept watch, sensing movement in the shadows. The soft click of heels echoed, a trapdoor? A hidden observer? And then, from the darkness, a voice, Detective Hale. Claire. Evelyn Cross stepped out, flawless as ever, a tablet in her hand, her eyes cold and calculating. I was wondering how long it would take you, she said smoothly. You've done well to survive this long. Nathan aimed his gun. Step aside. This ends tonight. Cross smiled faintly. Ends? No, Detective. This is just the beginning. Your father left you a trail, yes, but I am the final link. And the cipher will be completed, with or without you. Suddenly, alarms blared. Claire's screen flashed, security override in progress. Nathan dove for cover as armed guards emerged from side corridors. Bullets pinged against the server racks, sending sparks into the humid air. Claire. We need the key now. Nathan shouted. Almost there, she replied, sweat on her brow. It's integrated into the central architecture. Just need to extract and decrypt. Evelyn Cross moved with unnerving calm through the chaos. Do you really think you can stop what your father built? Halcyon is beyond you. Nathan's hand tightened around his gun. We'll see about that. Claire hit the final command. Lines of code scrolled, translating the Halcyon_master.key into coordinates, names, and a series of encrypted messages, all pointing to the origin of the original Cipher Project, the abandoned facility in Virginia. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. No, this wasn't supposed to happen yet. Nathan seized the moment. It's over, Cross. The keys are safe. Cross raised her tablet, pressing a hidden trigger. The server room began to lock down, doors sliding, security shutters descending. Nathan grabbed Claire's hand. Move. They sprinted toward a maintenance shaft, narrowly avoiding a hail of gunfire. Sparks flew as they kicked open the heavy metal door leading to the service elevator. The elevator dropped like a stone into the basement. At the bottom, the tunnels opened into a hidden exit. Rain lashed their faces as they emerged behind the building, breathless and soaked, but alive. Outside, Nathan looked back at Orpheus Dynamics, its mirrored glass reflecting the storm. We've survived, for now. Claire shivered. They'll come after us again. The network, the keys, we've just painted a target on ourselves. Nathan nodded. Then we finish what your father started. We find the remaining pieces, we expose the truth, and we make sure no one else dies. The storm raged on, but in that moment, Nathan felt something he hadn't in years: hope. The Cipher Project was far from over, but for the first time, they had a real chance. The morning fog hung low over the Virginia countryside, the kind of fog that made familiar roads look like shifting illusions. Nathan and Claire had returned to the abandoned Cipher facility, the place where it all had started. This time, they weren't just searching, they were confronting history. Every clue points here, Nathan said, setting down his backpack. This is where my father, where it all began. Claire scanned the perimeter. And where the final piece of Halcyon must be. Inside, the facility was eerily quiet. Broken glass crunched beneath their boots. Symbols scratched into the walls, remnants of past experiments, glowed faintly under the beam of their flashlights. Nathan traced one with his finger, his father's handwriting. A soft click echoed behind them. They turned to see Evelyn Cross, flanked by 2 armed guards. Detective Hale, she said smoothly, I should have expected you to follow the trail. Nathan stepped forward. It's over, Cross. We know the truth. Cross's eyes flicked to the symbols on the wall. Truth? You know fragments, at best. Your father left this behind for a reason. The keys, they were never meant to protect you. They were meant to control. Claire interjected, control what? People? Governments? Control the flow of information, Cross said. Cipher Project wasn't about encryption. It was about power. Information is power. Your father realized that too late, so he hid the keys and left messages only you could decipher. Nathan's heart pounded. So you've been orchestrating the murders, using Cipher as a cover? Cross's expression hardened. Every death was necessary. Whitaker, Grayson, Marcus, they were liabilities. You and your father were the only ones who could potentially expose the system. Nathan felt a chill. His father. Robert Hale. He hadn't disappeared, he had been fighting a war behind the scenes, leaving breadcrumbs for Nathan. Your father left the final key, Nathan said slowly. It wasn't for you to follow him. It was for you to stop this. Cross's gun moved slightly. Nathan noticed it, and in a split second, he threw himself to the side, diving behind a metal console. Claire rolled to the other side. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the empty corridors. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted. Using the Halcyon_master.key drive, Claire accessed the central console. Lines of code scrolled, unlocking a hidden sequence. A holographic display projected into the air, showing all remaining Cipher nodes, the connections between operatives, and Evelyn Cross's manipulations. This is it, Claire shouted. We can expose everything. Nathan charged forward, tackling one of the guards. Cross tried to escape but froze when Nathan pressed the final override on the system. A security lock enclosed her in a small chamber, unable to access the nodes. Outside, sirens wailed. Authorities had been tipped off remotely by the automated system Claire triggered. Police stormed the building, taking Cross and her operatives into custody. Nathan and Claire watched as handcuffs clicked into place, the storm clearing just enough for the sun to peek through. "Your father, he planned all this," Nathan said quietly, touching the wall with the symbols. "He left the keys, left the messages, to make sure I could finish it." Claire put a hand on his shoulder. "And you did. Cipher Project ends here." Nathan exhaled, relief and exhaustion mingling. For the first time in decades, the shadows of the past felt distant. Weeks later, Nathan received a letter, unsigned. Inside was a single line in his father's handwriting. "Power is only as strong as the conscience that wields it. Guard it well, my son." He smiled faintly. Nathan Hale had faced the ghosts of Cipher, uncovered the truth, and survived. Not just for himself, but for everyone who had been caught in the shadows of a cryptographic war. The Cipher Project was over. But the lesson remained: knowledge was power, and sometimes, the right person had to carry it forward.